Hello. Um, I know yesterday was a bit short because I was tired. Well, the bad news is I'm tired today too. Um, and I don't really, well, I didn't really sleep very well last night or the night before, so I am blaming poor sleep on all of this. Um, but, like everything, you can only do what you can do. So here I am. Um, I have come to do what I can, and it's also later than intended because it's 10 to 8. Because I was kind of good at like 4 o'clock, and I kind of moved, thought, okay, and it was 5 o'clock, and then then I got myself some food, and well, it was only a sandwich, so that didn't take very long. And now it's 8 o'clock, and I'm really not quite sure where the time went. I know I watched a video, but it wasn't that long, I didn't think. I was watching something on YouTube, but never mind. We find ourselves where we do. So, let's have a look. Unpack the many layers of life. There we go. You see, how is... It looked straight a minute ago. There you go. It's not looking straight. And, all you can see is kind of the back of the pillow, which is kind of weird. Let's move the table a bit further away. Pull that a bit closer. There we go. Right. I think the short answer is that I need to move that. There we go. Yes, we are still moving the camera the old-fashioned way. It's still not working. Do you know what they've asked me to do again? Oh, can you uninstall it and reinstall it? And, bitch, I've done that like 4 times already. The definition of insanity is exactly that. So... and it's been a month and it still doesn't work. So, it's just not in a hurry to try it, I feel almost like I've got a heat stroke. It's a cross between kind of flu without the flu or heat stroke, and I can't work out which it actually is. And something here is wacky, so let's try and work out where 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's put you back because we won't be needing you. But yeah, it's just that level of everything. It's like flu without the cold or heat stroke, and I'm not entirely sure which, but either way, not liking it. Hey Zukin, how are you? Yeah, I know the tired thing. Absolutely. Yeah. You were having you when I dropped in on your stream. I think it was yesterday. Days have blurred a little. You know how days can do that. Yeah. You were having fun with chainmail, so you've been busy. I really have no energy today. Oh no. Oh no. No, I know that feeling. I do know that feeling. There is. You'd think when you kind of picked out the last one or whatever, you'd have noticed, but you never seem to until you go to pick one and there isn't one. And you're like, oh, I am out of things that I require. Because it means kind of peopling and going to the store or summoning the store to you, whichever is most feasible. Personally, I like the store to you variety if possible. Because then I don't have to brave the 50,000 people with their whiny little children. Because, well, we all know that that's so much fun. I was talking to a co-worker either this morning or yesterday, and I was saying how when you're in a store or whatever and there's a kid kicking off and being a little git, if you're watching the parents trying to do something about it, you feel sorry for the parents. You're like, oh, that kid's really running them up. Oh, you know, it must be really annoying, you know. Look, they're trying really hard to, you know, make it happy or, you know, getting it to shut up. Speak for yourself, I'd rather stay in. But, you know, if you watch, you know, you're watching mother, dad, both trying to appease, you know, the spawn of Satan who's kicking off, you always feel sorry for the parents. If spawn of Satan's kicking off and the parents are just standing around chatting, now you feel sorry for the kid and you're mad at the parents. But realistically, it's the same amount, same noise. It's one of the things that I think has you know, has always plagued my soul is that if someone needs help, no one minds helping, right? There is so many people will happily step in to help someone. What they don't want to be doing is doing it for you. And, you know, and this applies to work and pretty much everything. If you're trying to do something and, you know, you're struggling, a lot of people will help someone who's struggling. I mean, there's always some arsehole who'll walk away, but, you know, people are more inclined to help you than if you just kind of stand there looking pathetic, right? And expecting someone to do it for you. And we've kind of got, you know, like every company, there are people who do both. There are the people who will try and do lots of things, and, you know, and then, you know, you're like, do you need a hand with that? And they're like, yeah, actually I do, right? And you've got every bit of sympathy for that. And then there are the, I tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas people. But this is your job, honey, you know? And it's much harder to have sympathy for them or want to be overly helpful because, well, you know you're going to end up doing it all for them. I know I'm going to get in trouble at work for a ticket I did today. I know I am. Someone asked for a report on something, so I told them how to make the report. I didn't do the report, I told them how to. And I'm sure I'll get in trouble for it. But I am not the only one who can do that, so you didn't need me to do it. You know. You know, teach the man to fish, you'll eat forever, and if you give a man a fish, you'll eat for today, you know? So if I gave you a report, you'll be back every frigging so often. Can you run it again? Can you run it again? Well, hey, it's how to do it yourself, you know? Now you can run it as often as you like. So I know I'm going to be unpopular, but... It rained a bit this afternoon, so now it's just... But not enough to actually make it cooler. So now it's just more humid. So I've got a bit of a headache, to be honest. And so, tired with headache. Not feeling my greatest here, you know. But I've come to do my best, which may or may not be a lot. But I've come to do my best. For every step we take is one step nearer the end. So. I swear I felt that get longer just as I went to put it down. How did you do that? I'm too old, Zugan. Too old for everything. It is. It is, isn't it? I mean, the phrase, the youth is wasted on the young, has never hit so hard as when you're older. Because all that unboundless energy you had when you were young and stupid, and you frivelled it away doing jack crap value, and now you're older and could actually use some of it, it's gone. Yeah, youth is definitely wasted on the young. I think part of my problem is always that caffeine and sugar do not wake me up. So once I'm tired, that's it, done. Nothing. It's almost like a form of narcolepsy, is that once I'm tired, the countdown to shutdown has begun. Which is why, on yesterday's stream, I was literally almost having to force my eyes open with every blink. My face was falling off, that kind of melting face feeling where you just can't have, your muscles aren't even bothering to try and keep your face up, and everything's just hanging. And I'm not far off any better today, but I will have to go and get some more drink because I'm chewing through. Well, I'm not chewing. I am racing through this at an extreme knot. Plus, it's warm, and it's supposed to be cold. So, I might have nodded off because this is a lot warmer than you'd expect. So I'm going to say I'm somehow nodded off, passed out, it ceased to exist for a short while. A time bubble formed around me and went a lot faster, or something, because this drink is really quite warm for a cold drink that was out the fridge. A bit of a tidy up of this end. It's looking a bit full. So, right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go back in there. 1, 4. So next lap, you get in a stick. Makes sense, although you are 1,000 foot longer than your friends. Okay. Yeah, I definitely feel like I've got a heat stroke, but I haven't even been outside. Now, not that you have to go outside to get heat stroke, please understand. But usually, That's kind of how it works, especially in this country. But I almost feel like my skin's on fire, like I've got sunburn, but I haven't, because, well, I haven't been outside. So, I definitely feel like I've got a form of heat stroke. You are too long, my friends. You need to be short. Come on. I promise not to. Travel safely on the way to fight the hordes, the all hordes of orcs for your food. Um, I need a pokey stick. We need to do some poking now. No. How can I have my fan on and it's not helping? Probably should have my squirty bowl. That's what I should have. My squirty bottle of water. But never mind. I do not. Oh, my friends. It's definitely a hard day. Hello. Hello, hello. are you? So, the end of that one. I need to put 2 of you back in here. This. That sounds like a good plan. I'm struggling with the heat and feeling very tired. I've either got kind of flu trying to happen or a form of heat stroke. Most likely heat stroke. And I am battling on but struggling. So yes, feeling not quite myself today. But I'm here. We are going with the adage of for every step you take today is one you don't have to do tomorrow. So I am here to do as much as I can today, which may not be a lot, but it's still, well, some. So, you know, let's face it, I have just done this little chunk here, and if that's all I'd achieved, it's still one more chunk than we'd done. So that's kind of where I'm at, is having to find small joys in really, really having to look for them. It is, and there's not else I can do about it either. I mean, hang on, I have to take my earpiece out, otherwise I can't hear it. Hang on. Alexa, what is the temperature on the downstairs thermostat?
The downstairs thermostat temperature is 26.5 degrees.
No, this is not crochet. This is bobbin lace. Crochet involves sticks such as this, which have little hooks on the end, right? I have got bigger ones, but not to hand. You also have things such as this. Hang on. I am getting something, it's just being a bit resistant to come out where it is. Which are knitting needles. This is not knitting. This is bobbin lace. Bobbin lace is technically very simple. Bobbin lace is made out of 2 moves, a little like knitting. Is made out of 2 moves. So, let me just sort those out. There we go. Right. So, for the switch, which is making these little squarey things, please don't make me zoom in on them, because camera is not a happy place right now. But let me do it the hard way, and I'll show you what I mean by the squarey things. Hang on. I have to do this by pulling up the camera app, because the conversation between the camera app, made by the same people who make the buttons app, isn't working. So if I do this and then move it up a bit, hang on. Actually, you can go in a lot further than that. Hang on. Zoop. You can see here, these make like little squares with circles in, right? Just go with it. That's kind of where we're at, right? Just further out. Let's go back and get back in slightly. There we go. In bobbin lace making, for general terms, you work with 2 pairs of bobbins. These 2 can hang over here for a minute. And there is the cross, left thing over right thing, and the twist, the right thing over the left thing. And stabbing of pins. And that is it. Those are the only 3 movements you require to do lace making. And actually I didn't need to do those yet. Hang on. But that is all you need. So I've got to do a thing with these. Hang on. Twist, cross, twist. Right, now I'm ready to do the thing. Get her off the pin. So basically you cross and twist your way around the world, following the little dots and the patterns on the piece of paper underneath. For they remind you which bits you're doing. I mean, they could just have dots and you try and remember where to start things and where to stop things. But it's a lot easier because we colour them in and put markings on them, and it's a bit like cross stitch, you know, they put little bits in to say this goes here and that goes there. So, cross and twist, stab at your pin, cross and twist, then I move to this pair and go cross and twist, grab a pin, stab it in a hole, cross and twist, it's cross and twist, stab the hole, cross and twist, cross and twist, stab the hole, cross and twist, and then cross and twist, twist, cross and twist, and cross and twist. And then we have made one square with a circle in it. So yes, there you go. Foot's gone to sleep. Oh, ow, oh, ow, ow, ow. I'm not feeling my age. I'm feeling everybody else's. I'm today is being a lot harder than it should be. I feel like an excerpt from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. For which, while I cannot quote it exactly word from word, it goes on about how humans are mostly harmless, but that they have an amazing ability to state the obvious, such as, "My, isn't it a sunny day?" And that's exactly how I'm feeling. Is that, you know, especially everyone in England has been going, "Oh, it's really hot." Yes, it is. I'm doing no better. I think if you think back to the last month we've been making strips, one of the things that we didn't have to do a lot of is this. The working down through a crap load of bobbins and then having to slide them all back to where they started. And so this is why this takes so much longer, because you have to do it carefully so you don't jumble them all up. And I'm out of drink. This is not good. Oh look, Spambot. Hello, Spambot. You came to die. We shall report you for being. Well, she's certainly either that or she's having friggin' menopause. And she's having hot flushes. She does seem kind of miffed. It is. But like I said to you the other day, you know, well, Well, she is. But then, when you consider how warm it is here, and usually we're not that warm, I'm not surprised the middle's hotter. I mean, the outside sure is. For some reason, blimey, Spambot's already dead. I got the we've actioned it before I got the received it. That was real quick. I've always had a healthy fascination for volcanoes. There are a number of volcanoes you can watch live webcams of, which are really interesting. And I do remember I watched a good chunk of St Helens blow once. I just happened to be watching the video and it kind of, a chunk of it moved. And I was like, that moved. I saw that. But it is one of those kind of moments where, because we live on the top of the earth where it is sometimes quite cold, wet, miserable, you know, kind of depressing. And times like now when the sun is beating down of us and we wish it would kind of bugger off for a minute, we forget that we are on a molten ball of rock, that the middle is super toasty warm, and that it's all wet and swelly in there, and that it's on the inside. And occasionally, a bit like a zit, it kind of gets to the surface and it explodes. Sometimes in a very spectacular manner, sometimes in a little bit of a kind of kind of moment. Are you near St Helens? And Yellowstone and that kind of area. If you need to come on holiday, I understand, right? Okay. Dad, oh dear God, go on holiday. Go to Australia for a month or something. Emigrate. Do something. Yeah, if that... I mean, if all the rivers... I mean, obviously, for an awful lot of us who are not American and who have not been there, we associate Yellowstone with the geyser that blows constantly. And there's a webcam for that. And St Helens. And... well, you'd want to be far, far away, wouldn't you? Whatever it is, you'd need to go kind of far away. But I'd say go to Alaska, but they've got their own problems, so don't be going there at the moment. But you do sit there, and as a non-American, as someone from a smaller country, it is hard to picture the size of Yellowstone, because it's huge. The area of Yellowstone that has all the mountains and the mini volcanoes that no one really talks about, and obviously the big one, because of course it's all actually one big one, and it's the kind of thing that you can only really truly experience on a map. Even if you're there, I imagine it's kind of hard to entirely take it all in, because while it's not circular, right, but we'll go with the circle, because that's all I can do with my fingers. If the volcano is, say, here, there are mountains kind of around, and all the rest of it. But the magma pool is all of it. And so, if that gets pissing, That is possibly the biggest volcano on this planet that could go. Now, there are other volcanoes where there are volcanoes next to volcanoes, but not quite like Yellowstone. And while Yellowstone has been quiet, that's actually more of the problem. If a volcano is a bit weepy a lot of the time, the pressure is being regulated because the excess comes out. When the pressure doesn't get to come out, it builds up, and then it sneezes everything. Which is why people talk about things like earthquakes, because obviously volcanoes generally are where plates have gone over each other and there is a weakness so that the magma can leak out through the gap. And it's usually where the plates are pulling apart rather than where they're going together, because that will kind of force everything down. Generally. It's not a guarantee, but generally that is true. And so this is why places like the San Andreas Fault are very, very carefully monitored, because they know the plates should be moving X centimetres a year. If they don't, and the more time that goes between the tremors of them going stick, stick, stick as they move apart, well, the more they're going to need to move when they actually get to move. And the more violent it is likely to be, because we've all trodden on ice and you move a little bit and you go, whoa, and your heart skips a beat and you've just moved like a quarter of an inch. When you've skidded all the way down the stairs on your butt and broken things, life's not so happy. You're now bruised and broken. And earthquakes kind of do the same. And obviously, volcanoes, as I said, are a sign of the plates pulling apart. Earthquakes are just the plates moving. And, well, frankly, it kind of... Well, logically, if you've got this, and this bit needs to go that way, so does the other end. So there's, these things usually happen. There'll be an earthquake and a volcano because the earthquake has, made a bit of a gap, or the volcano has pushed its way up, or, right? So... But it is, being here in the UK, where the worst thing we get is slight flash floods, right? We moan about heck of a lot, but realistically, we don't get none of that. You get people claiming we have earthquakes. No, we don't. It's more likely a lorry drove past. There have been recorded earthquakes. No one's sure entirely what of, because there's nothing to move. So it's more likely underground events by various businesses, mine collapse, things like, if we've dug a quarry, the bottom of the quarry's collapsed and sent a ripple. They're not earthquakes as in plates moving, because we just don't have any. Now, well, they can break apart. But then there'd be more. There'd be more to it, if you know what I mean. So yes, plates can break. They don't But isn't Africa on one of the plate lines anyway? Let me have a look. So, if you have never been to this place, let me do my screen share. Hang on. Hang on. Yes. Hang on. Let me get my window up. Share my desktop. Hang on. Desktop. Go. Shrink. Right. This is the seismic monitor. This shows you the earthquakes. So, for example, you can see here that there's been a 5.7 in Alaska as of 4 o'clock this morning, or 4:30 this morning, right? Admittedly, it's the same map repeated, so don't get too excited. You're not losing marbles. It is the same map repeated. But you can see the plates of the world by where all of the events happen. Now, there are occasional captures in other places, but as a whole, you know, so for example, if I hover over England, if I zoom in on England, right, there's one, I think it's going to tell me. It's kind of not showing me the details. There's a dot there, come on. I can see that there's a dot there. Normally you click on them and it'll take you to the readings. But as you can see, compared to everywhere else, we don't really get any. So for example, if I click on this, it will tell you exactly where it is and all the rest of it. And, you know, if you look over here, you know, you can see various things. You know, you can follow all the volcanoes and, well, this follows the earthquakes. There are earthquake monitors. Sorry, not earthquakes, volcanoes. So there are various, and my internet showing up like it does, but they list, you know, currently the Alaskan one's doing really, really well, but they do list, but there are webcams. So if you do, I don't suppose the BBC's going to have a decent list, but come on. So, Hawaii, Augustine and Alaska, you can see it's poofing off. What's a pitiful list? BBC, that's really kind of shit. This is more like it. Now, don't always expect them to be good, but if you do like, I assume they still run it. I haven't looked. Webcam, mounts and headers, right? Is it webcam? I hate it when I take it it's offline. Oh no, that's live. There you go. So you can watch and actually watch, and sometimes, obviously, if it's been doing something. See, I would say that middle bit's been growing again because last time I looked, that was a lot flatter. So that middle bit's been growing. There's obviously a cratery bit there where a bit's fallen in, but it's thinking about it because you can see that the middle bit, which is where it keeps blowing from, is going up. That's going to crack. That's definitely a thing. Hang on. Yeah, and she's just not one I would want to. I mean, if she decides to have a bit of a cry, that's okay. I'll live with that. But if it's kind of, if it gets a bit more interesting, then maybe not. So, for example, here's Cleveland, who I think isn't Cleveland's not one of the ones actively going off right now, but you know that cloud does make it look like it is. Blimey, yeah, that's the frightening part. But if you look at that, I don't think that's a cloud. That looks like volcano output because it's more densest kind of coming out the top. So even though Alaska's got the big strip of land that's bubbling away, which I don't suppose they've got a picture of, but because I think if I do news, I don't suppose I'll find it now, will I? Like all these things, it was here only the other day. And I can't type. No, it was here only the other day. It's always the way. It was there until you want it, and now it's not here anymore. There you go, volcano erupting Iceland. You know, we've not got the straight line, so, you know, there's a dead straight line there, which is very unheard of in. But, you know, it's kind of popping off a bit. Wouldn't want to be there in a hurry, that's for sure. But that is really weird, because that is the edge of a fault line, clearly, right? And it's almost a dead straight line. It is quite frightening that, because as I say, nature's not very good at straight lines. But just having a quick look. Yeah, they've not got a thing for that. But it is quite interesting to watch a lot of the what's this one got? Oh no. But they do tend to have people, because webcams are now such a thing and you don't need an awful lot to do it. You know, the number of volcano webcams out there, there are just so many to watch, and as you've said, you know, it does seem that the fact that the world is getting a bit hotter at the moment, and you know, your side, my side, we're all feeling a bit warm. Well, if it warms up on the outside, it weakens the outside, and the warmy bit on the inside will want to come out. This is not. It's like I have blood and guts and stuff going around my innards, but I don't see them because, well, they're on the inside. And I'm quite happy about that, to be honest. You know, they're doing their thing. That's great. But when they come on the outside, well, that's really a bad sign. And I've always had like this healthy fascination with volcanoes, just because. I mean, I used to come home every day from work and look at Mount St Helens, because, like you say, it is a super volcano, and the day if that does anything too exciting, it's not good for anybody, right? I mean, if you think of the plume of crap that Chernobyl made and the damage it did to the world, bearing in mind when it did its thing, I was at secondary school, and my physics teacher put a Geiger counter out the window with a monitor on it and a plotter thing, and it did the whole kind of uppy downy thing, right? As, you know, the day went on. And you could track when it went over the UK. It was visible quite a lot. It wasn't like, no, it was, you know, if you think of how much damage that did, imagine what something the size of St Helens would do to the world. I mean, yes. Well, you know, there's been a couple of programs, and as I say, I have this healthy fascination for. I am really fascinated by the fact that the guts come out of the earth, right? But I'm also not stupid enough to go and play with one, right? You know, I have a healthy respect, and it's, you know, it's a bit like being interested in how the sun's made and all the rest of it. It's really healthy and interesting, but I'm going to stay here and think about it from a distance because, well, it's a bit warm over there, right? And volcanoes kind of fall into that category. And my friend, when I was ill in hospital, had been on holiday and went up a volcano. And it was kind of like, you did what? You went and actively stood where the guts of the earth can come out. Oh, it was definitely warmer up there, and, you know, it was a bit... Because I don't think it was, like, you know, ready to blow or anything, but at the same time, they occasionally do just catch you out, and you're like, you voluntarily went and stood where you could be turned into bacon. Hello? Have you been checked for mental illnesses recently? So yes, I mean, I am fascinated by it. But at the same time, I mean, as a child, you've got to picture this, right? It's like 11:30 at night, and I'm watching the end of a video, and the phone rings, and it's like, no one rings our ham family at 11:30 at night. And when I say I was a child, I was old enough to be going out in a car and driving, but still living at home. So I'd have been somewhere in the sort of 18, 19 era. So I was kind of an adult, but only just, right? And the phone rang. And obviously I'm the only one up, so I answer the phone. Hello, this is the volcano hotline. Oh, fuck off, you drunk idiot. Piss off, you know, scam caller, whatever. Put the phone down. Hello, madam. No, sorry. Who is that? It's Mr. Kimber there. And I'm like, no, he's asleep. Why? Well, he asked us to ring him. What? He asked us to ring him. We're trying to notify him that the volcano... Funny enough, in Alaska, I think it was certainly in Iceland, somewhere around there. Some volcano's knocking off, and he wanted to know. Okay. Dad, there's some nutter on the phone who says he's from the volcano hotline, that you wanted to know a volcano's going off in Iceland. Oh, excellent, said my dad. My dad immediately booked flights and went out. My dad deliberately flew off to this volcano that was popping off to go and watch it. Didn't take me with him. But, yeah, I've never forgotten that phone call. So what? You from where? You know, so there's another word for the loony bin. What do you mean the volcano hotline? Yeah, it's the volcano hotline. And they phoned him up to say that the volcano was kicking off. He thoroughly enjoyed it. But yeah, so I have this healthy interest, and I always have, of volcanoes and earthquakes because of what they represent. But at the same time, no desire to partake in the actual event. So, you know, I think some of my volcano fascination came from Pompeii and the story of, you know, how, you know, the entire village was swallowed and basically everybody died and all this kind of stuff. And how they died real frigging quick. And hence the healthy I'll do it from a distance kind of scenario, because, you know, it'd be just my luck it would do it again. So, you know, I'm not like, you know, I'm not queuing up to go, but at the same time, I am fascinated that, you know, the inside of the earth can leap out and do that to us. So, yeah, it is kind of... But, so hence, you know, I'm kind of up on my volcanoes and earthquakes. I haven't been so good at following them recently. It was the ash. Most of them suffocated. they got bogged down by really thick, heavy ash. So it was, you know how like snowflakes, you get the little tiny kind of floaty ones, and then sometimes you get like the big clumps. It was almost like people, yeah, it was, the ash was coming down almost like handfuls of clay. But of course, really, really hot. So it kind of landed and burnt them alive. It was horrific. Well, I mean, obviously we weren't there, right? Nobody was there. And but you know, it kind of blew, but at the same time, it blew. It's almost like if you think of the Terminator movie where they have the dream of where the atomic bomb goes off. It's not going to be dissimilar in that while it's obviously not a nuclear bomb, you haven't got the radiation and all the rest of it. You do have a sound wave. You can have sound waves. You have earthquakes. You have intense heats. You have spraying of material, and if you look at Africa, there is a crater called Ngorongoro crater. It was a volcano. If you look at the size of that thing was fucking huge. And the bits of it, yeah, they literally got cooked and caked almost simultaneously, with great lumps of clay stopping them from breathing, and it was like inhaling raw fire. It would have been horrendous. I mean, to be fair, they probably didn't suffer as much as you might think, because they almost, they would have been scared, because they would have seen bits of it coming, right? So, much like the nuclear thing where you don't get to see it for very long, but you see it coming, which is why they were standing. They were not all hiding in the bottom of a corner of a room. They were all, half of them were still kind of going about their day. They'd maybe grab their children as they heard the noise, or because, of course, they didn't necessarily know what volcanoes, unlike us where, we've got science and stuff. They didn't really know what a volcano was. It is, and it's. I mean, we still have lots of things in this world we can't explain, right? Imagine what it was like when the things that we almost take for granted. So we know what causes earthquakes. We know what to look for. We have built things that are designed to cope with it. They didn't know. All they assumed is God was angry. But how can you argue with that? It must have been absolutely horrific. And of course, even if the same event was to happen today to somewhere, anywhere, right, where, you've got a peaceful little village on the, kind of on the edge. Think of Hawaii, because their volcanoes pop off a lot, right? If something happened today, people still die from it. It is not that we have the solution. We don't all kind of go, oh yes, the volcano's going to erupt at 2 p.m. tomorrow. We'll all just kind of bugger off over here for a little bit and we'll go and stay on the mainland or whatever, right? It doesn't happen. They still catch people out. They've got a lot more warnings now because they can detect the minor rumbles. They can, as Mika Ketsumi says, they can, they've got microphones, sensors, temperature gauges. These things are under scrutiny because they've been identified as risks, right? But of course, back then, the biggest problem for volcanoes is that the land next to a volcano is super rich in nutrients, making it the perfect place to farm and live. So of course people do. and always have. The moment they discovered that, you know, oh, this big steepy hill thing, but down the bottom, you know, our plants grow 3 times bigger, have far more product. The animals, you know, there's all this fresh grass. It's you know, even on a bad winter or even on a bad harvest, it's still great. We'll live here. They didn't know. It is really sad that they didn't know. And to be honest, some of the forecasts depend, you know, so picking on Yellowstone as it's been a little bit awake at the moment, if the forecast of Yellowstone going critical occurs, as Mickey Ketsme said, it can put us into an ice age. It will cause world-changing event. How do you prepare for that? We can't even cope with a few germs from COVID. How would the world cope if basically we had the equivalent of a nuclear winter? Where crops cease to grow for a year. What would we do? We can't cope without, you know, we had COVID and everyone bought 83 billion tonnes of toilet roll that they'll be handing down their generations for the next 60 generations to live. You know, everyone's lofts full of frigging toilet roll. Garage, whatever, right? Which reminds me, I must put toilet roll on my purchase list as I'm kind of out. I've got 1 roll left, and that's never a good place to be. Especially when you've got dodgy guts, because I think I've got a form of heat stroke at the moment, so I've got kind of dodgy guts. 1 roll of blue roll could be a bit short in these moments. But you're sitting there going, you know, that's... And we know this. Imagine what it would have been like, you know, back... I mean, obviously, you know, when the dinosaurs went extinct, right? But imagine what it could have been like for anything that was around then. I mean, okay, they're animals, they don't exactly watch the news, right? But if you think back, you don't even have to go back that far. When news from the next village came by horse, and that was the only way you got news from outside your village. That there was not interwebs and radios and phone calls and, you know, when the post would take a week to get, you know, 100 miles, right? Imagine all of those times where you literally hired a postman to ride from A to B. None of this, it goes in a collective system and spits out the other end. Imagine when news would take that long to travel. Well, imagine, you know, meteor hits the Earth. Most people will die before they even knew what the problem was, and they would not have seen it. Imagine how that would feel. It is quite a scary thing, and, you know, I think we do live in a really blessed time in the sense of, you know, something happens wonky in one country, and seconds later, 90% of the world probably knows about it. You know, if they're paying attention to any, you know, media broadcast or whatever, you know, well, when September 11 happened, we were at work, and rumours spread through the building because obviously someone had been listening to the radio in their car on the way back, and it's like, oh my god, news in, you know, plane seems to have hit. We were all watching CNN over the internet, not that it was a good one, but, you know, suddenly 1,000 computers all using our internet to watch CNN. And we were watching. In shock. We watched that live from the UK. You know, so in that sense, you know, get his head out of your mouth, woman. Literally, she had his entire head in her mouth. But we got to watch that and the horrific events that occurred, right? Imagine if you couldn't. Imagine if you didn't know and your relatives. Well, oddly enough, I say that, 2 of my cousins worked in the Trade Centre. They weren't there on that day, but 2 of my... Well, I've only got 3 cousins, by the way, but 2 of them worked there. Yay! Welcome back. But yeah, and I think, I mean, I watched some weird stuff on TV when I was a kid, so I'm obviously clearly older than Zukin because I was not at school. But at the same time, we watched things like the raising of the Mary Rose, and it's like some manky old boat from the bottom of the sea. Whoop, right? But of course, it's a really old boat. They'd found it. You know, it's a bit like, you know, if they decided to raise the Titanic, you know, it was something that was very historically important to England. But I didn't really get it. You know, things like, you know, the launching of the space shuttles. You know, a lot of the time, you know, it was kind of like, oh, you know, space shuttles going up. But you could watch it. Well, you know, imagine in the days when that wasn't true. And, you know, like I said, if you imagine things like September 11th, if we had not had the internet, if we had not had the global connectivity that we had then, imagine how it would have, you know, it would have been if, you know, it would have taken weeks and months potentially for that news to make it around the world. I mean, we had phones and stuff, but imagine if, you know, to find out that part of your family were safe or not could take months. It would have been horrendous. And so, you know, we do live in a really good time. You know, we do live in a good time for the fact that we're all sitting here having a conversation irrelevant of where we are in the world. Well, that didn't really happen back then. You know, but we are. And if St Helens blows, well, as I said, you know, it's you know, if St Helens actually blew, the full stack, and, you know, the perfect storm happened, because there's been programs on it, their calculations show it is going to be not dissimilar to a nuclear winter, just without the radiation. That there will be such a huge cloud of crap that will circle the Earth that it will poison the atmosphere. Yes. And, you know, like everything, we all understand that, you know, not everything's ideal. That's the way the world works. We kind of get that. But how would... I mean, not that I ever want to be ruler of a country, do... Yes, I'm British. But it's 26.5 in my house, so that's nearer 90. It's, you know, it is kind of warmish in here, considering it is 9:30 at night. But it is one of those things, is that, you know, the bit that I think that would have the hardest parts would be how governments could control the panic that would ensue. Because, well, panic is a very reasonable reaction, I feel. It's very human and natural. think we were slightly hotter, and I was referring to us as Satan's left nutsack, because it truly was absolutely ridiculous. It is marginally better because we've actually had some rain, but all that really seems to have done today, so we had some rain today for about 10 seconds, but all it's really done is made it more humid. It didn't actually seem to cool it down. So it's just made it worse. It's made it stickier and horribler rather than cleared it up. What we really need is an Armageddon level kind of thunderbolts and lightning kind of style thunderstorm, where, you know, a few flash floods, and we need that for quite a bit. We need a couple of hours of thunderbolts and lightning and rain, heavy rain, and people moaning that there's now Noah getting on his ark, right? We need that. We absolutely need that, because it is just too hot and horrible. And as far as I know, we're not due to get one. We're going to have some more rain, I think, briefly, momentarily. Let's have a quick look at the joyous weather applications. Nonk, nonk, nonk. So, daily. It says hotter tomorrow, hotter than that Saturday, hotter than that Sunday, hotter than that Monday. Basically, getting back to Satan's left nutsack by this time next week, and the week after. There is some chance of rain early next week. So one day's got a 55% chance of rain, but it's still going to be hot. And it's not like, I know on Sunday it's got a 55% chance of rain, and on Monday it's like 5 degrees cooler. No, that's not going to happen. So those rain forecasts have no help to me whatsoever. But, because if anything, it says Sunday it's going to be, Sunday it does say it's going to be cooler. It's going to be 22 degrees. On Saturday it's going to be 25. But of course, it's never the number that they put on here. So, you know, take that with a bit of a pinch of salt. But Monday's going to be hotter than Sunday. So despite all the rain and the cooling that you'd expect on Sunday, it's going to be hotter on Monday. So basically, arse is what it's like. To give you an idea, humidity on Sunday will be higher than 70%. I want to live in a bunker. I want to live below the ground in a bunker where it does not get hot at all. I know we've just been talking about how the middle of the earth is hot and all that, but it's not that far down. And that I have to keep it warm by heating it up. That's where I want to live. That's what I want to live in, so I can pick my temperature and not suffer. That's what I want. I don't feel that's particularly unreasonable. So, my friends, you all have a job. You need to raise me enough money so I can buy a small ex-nuclear bunker and go and live in it. That's what we want. That's what I need. There have been some for sale, by the way. There was one I actually looked at quite hard. I didn't go visit it, but I did look at the pieces of paper and where it was, and that would be nice. You know, most people kind of, oh, I want to live on an island. An island would work for me. Don't get me wrong, I could go for an island. But, to be honest, I'd rather have the nuclear bunker, because then you're more likely to get decent internet. So, because you're more on solid land and you're not trying to use satellite and stuff. Yeah, I kind of go, because I really doubt I will be able to afford to run my own fibre under the sea. So, let's put that in, and, you know, reality check. Island would be nice. Nuclear bumper, far more practical. That's not what I wanted to do, idiot. So yeah, um, that would be great. Would love me some of that. In a bunker. I've noticed that. It's the same with TV though, isn't it? You're just really getting into it. You know, the film or whatever is winding up and it's looking great and you really... And now it's the ads. Let's have 15 minutes of adverts for, you know, bog roll and, you know, lawn trimmers or something. And you're like, the fuck? Well, we weren't exactly doing anything exciting, to be fair, but, you know, yeah. It is always the way. It is always the way. It's part of the reason I haven't actually been checking because I've been looking at what I'm doing. Does my little ad counter and time down thing appear in the top left-hand corner? Is that still working? Because I'm not sure that it is. Well, actually, I remember it speaking to me, so I'm pretty sure it is. It just doesn't tell me when it's over. Yeah, I mean, I try and... To be honest, I tend to use Turbo because Turbo is the equivalent of 2 subscriptions. And in case you did not know, as a streamer, we do get pitiful, and I mean that genuinely, amounts of money from you guys watching adverts. It's an insultingly small amount. I mean, if you consider minimum wage and all that, it is insulting. Well, this is it. So if there are more than 2 people that you want to watch and you don't really want adverts for, if you've got 2, choice is yours. At the moment there's 3, it is more cost effective to buy Turbo. Now, yeah, I've got 4 or 5, so mine was definitely a good win. Now, I still, to some people, actually subscribe because I want them to have the money. But Turbo means that if I pull up some random streamer I've never seen before, I still don't get ads for them. Now, as a streamer, if you have Turbo, I get some money for the ads that you would have watched. Thank you for that, dogs. And I get, for those of you who watch the ads, I get the having a quiet battle, which I think started because she had his head. She had his head in her mouth, and I think he's trying to get her back now. Yes, he is. If I have to shout at them, I will. I heard that. Don't call her rude names under your fur. It's not how it works. But, so as a streamer, I get a pitiful amount of money for you guys watching ads. I get a small amount of money from any subs. So, I'm not entirely sure the ratio. I'm not sure if it actually says anywhere. Hang on. So, for example... out of the £5, out of the $5.99 or whatever it is dollars that you pay for a sub, I get $2.09, which of course I have to pay tax on, by the way, so I don't actually get $2.09 out of it, but they allocate towards me before taxes. that I get $2.09 ish, I think. A year-long subscription to something you generally don't get to watch would be quite annoying. So I get £2. I get $2.25 for a Prime sub. I'm just flicking through. Now, for Turbo, obviously it's hard kind of to judge. But if I look at, say, Monday, I had one sub. So I got some money for a sub. I got 9 cents for ads and 7 cents for Turbo. So as you can see, not gonna be... So I'm not exactly going to be retiring. It is a bit. As I said, you know, minimum wage and all that, you know, it's... Now, obviously, if you are some of the more popular people, you get better ratios. So, for example, I know that there was something I clicked on, and I can't remember where it was. I'm just reading it. I'm just reading this. Hang on. So, for me to get the next stage up, which hang on, let me put it up on my web browser. Because I found it there. Because obviously, you know, not everything gives you the same options as all the other options, right? So I currently get 30%. Sorry, no. If I run 3 minutes, which I should be, but it doesn't actually tend to work out very well, I potentially get 55% of the AV revenue that was put towards the ad, right? Otherwise, I get 30%, which, as you can imagine, you know, they pay like one cent a person kind of thing. It adds up really, really slowly. Now, there was a thing I saw. Hang on. Clickety, clickety, clickety. There you go. It tells me that if I'm in the Plus program, I get a higher revenue share on things like subscriptions. Click to find out. So I click to find out, and it says, you can now share your thing towards the goal. You need 100 points to reach level 1. To give you an idea, I've currently got 2 points. Okay, so nowhere near, right? But if I do that, I get 60-40, so I would get 60% of the sub. If you reach level 2, you get 70% of the sub. Affiliates and partners must maintain a minimum of 300 points, right? But they basically, although it's not in a magic little chart that would be nice, the high, you know, you get a lot more. Hang on, let me read this. Yeah. Hang on. Yeah, so you get a lot more depending as a base rate, depending on what you are. So obviously, you know, as a fairly low quantity streamer, I don't get a huge amount, but I'm not in it for the money, let's truly be honest. But let's just say you're not going to be buying me a bunkery anytime soon, right? Even if you're kind of ditched a load of money in, chances are not anytime soon. But you know, we can all have some hopes. I mean, to be honest, I kind of don't, because I'd be embarrassed if I had a lot of people watching me. I would feel really awkward, because, well, to be honest, I'm kind of surprised any of you come to be totally true. So, you know, with that in mind, But you know, I'm not here. I'm here documenting more to myself my journey than I am expecting to be rich. Right? I'm not going to be the next Mr. Beast. And I have, to be honest, I wouldn't want to be. I mean, part of me would love to retire and not have to go to work. I'm not going to pretend that's not a thing. But I also don't expect this to be the answer. So, you know, I am being quite realistic. Most crafting streams are not ever popular enough for giving up your day job. There are ways to do things to assist the giving up your day job. So I could record loads of training videos and, you know, charge people for that and, you know, make a community and do all of that and, you know, burn myself out trying to hold down 2 jobs for a bit. And once, you know, enough people, you know, so it depending on which crafty hobbies you tend to have, you know, there are various people or groups of people that have enough money coming in from it to give up a day job to do it. And hats off to them, really, really I do. But I don't foresee that being a thing. I would like it to be slightly more popular than it is. But well, the problem is that the kinds of people who watch most streams are gamers. And as a result, their spare time is spent playing the games. Most of them do not necessarily sit down for an inordinately long period of time doing dumb stuff like throwing bobbins around a cushion, right? As a result, you know, because the people who come to Twitch probably came to watch, I know, some guy who was playing the latest release of Fortnite, whatever it is, right? Dark Souls, you know, insert whatever, you know, or just come to see some drama, because, well, there are sure plenty of that going around. They might stop by, but, you know, much like on YouTube, you know, the people who make it good on YouTube almost have to be in certain categories, right? And the people who make it good on YouTube are making things that apply to huge numbers of people, such as makeup. I can assure you now, not for me, but, you know, makeup people tend to do quite well. Again, games. Well, I appreciate that. I truly, truly do. And you know, to be honest, that's really cool. You know, M&M is definitely my favourite game, and you know, we've got, was it 10 days or something? Just under till the, so it's not this weekend, it's next weekend. The weekend after is the next playtest, and I will be in OOC doing my bit, right? Because that's what I do. I will be answering questions. You know, and I'm not going to pretend. I will not be streaming because I'll be in M&M. So, but it is one of those things. Is that, you know, it is really not, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm really pleased and happy that you've come because you've, you know, of M&M, and, you know, but as you can see, I'm hardly drowning in viewers, right? There's supposed to be 7 of you at the moment, you know, you pretty much could all come around my room and sit in it. It's, you know, we're not talking vast numbers. Now, I'm cool with that to an extent. And I would love it if, you know, we kind of maintained a kind of double figures, because it helps you talk amongst yourselves, right? Not that I don't want to talk to you, but it makes it a bit more community when there is conversation between all of you, right? When you're talking amongst yourselves. I feel like there is a community. It's not me giving a lecture and answering questions, right? And as I said, I'm not against that, but it is really nice from my point of view when you're having a conversation and I listen to your conversation. Because I use text to speech so I can actually look at what I'm doing and I don't have to look at the computer all the time. So I listen to the conversation. And that I can keep doing but at the same time, people are engaging and, you know, it's all the rest of it. Because sometimes I do wonder that people log in and if I'm not talking and it's not lace-related rubbish, right, that they wander off because, well, they're bored. Well, yeah, but I'm not a radio DJ. I don't really know how to talk to silence without any feedback. I kind of need the feedback. I need the questions. What are you doing? How does this work? Why is that different? How do you make it differently? You know, do you need anything special? All of those, you know, kind of silly questions that come from, well, they're not silly questions, but all of those questions that come from someone who's never heard of it, never seen it, you know, what makes it different? Because there is many types of bobbin lace, right? But they all pretty much boil down to cross, twist, and a lot of it. Well, actually, they all do boil down to cross, twist, and a lot of it. Just sometimes you have more than 4 bobbins. But it is one of those things, is that, I mean, if you haven't seen, these are my pride and joy. So these squares, as you may notice from the top right hand corner, I've made 8.5. Here's the half, right? This is my next plan. She says getting this the right way around. So this is, let me move these out of the way a bit more. Actually, no, you'll be right. You can see them enough. You don't need to see the detail. But these are my next plan, which are strips. And one more strip, which I've got to make, will be the width of the window pane that I'm trying to fill. I am not after a big wavy net curtain, because then you don't watch the pattern, and I want my net curtains to be flat. I'm weird. Go with it. Well, of course I'm weird, right? But I have gone off these because these have a straight line, and when they join, they will look like squares joined together, which is not bad. And I knew that when I started. But I have come up with this, which, as you may notice, there is a line. And again, forgive me for not doing the whole zoomy thing in. You can see a line, but it almost disappears. And, well, when we join the next strip here on, actually, technically, this, if you want to go anatomically, it will be, the strips will be this way round. It doesn't actually matter. But in order, that's the order. So when this strip gets joined to this strip, I'm hoping to eradicate the fact that this little hole here is slightly bigger. And the reason it's slightly bigger is because you have 2 holes butted together, and you wind a thread round here, up through the hole, wind a thread round here, down through a hole, wind round the next bit, because obviously there's holes. So you get, but I've only worked one side. So these holes don't shrink like all the other holes, which is why it looks like there's a bigger hole here. And the reason this one here has a bold line is because the circles were overlapping. So I have plans to test better join here and practice it, whichever one I pick, here. And then there'll be a third one, but probably a fairly shorter one, but that will then give us the width of my thing. So you could argue, well, why don't you make it all in one piece? Well, this many bobbins that you can't really see, let me pull this down a bit. So here are the rest of the bobbins. As you can see, there's actually quite a few more, right? All of those bobbins make this width. Just the width of one strip. Now, as you can tell by the piles of bobbins that I've got, keeping them out the way is a challenge. Now, there are many advantages to the strips. The strips tend to work a lot better in terms of I don't have to turn it round, because when I get to the end of this triangle here, I will turn it round 90 degrees, so I can now start here and work down this way. So you don't have to turn it around, which means you don't have to shuffle lots of bobbins around. You just constantly, I've got a rollery pillow that's got kind of like a toilet roll on it, and that you just turn it round and you work on top, and it kind of, the lace falls off one side and you build it on the side a bit more facing me. And well, and that's what you do. And you can make as long as you like. So instead of making what would have been 18 squares, because that was the original plan, the squares will only give me half a curtain. It takes on average a month to make this square. So as you can tell, 8.5 months later, I'm kind of done with squares, frankly. But if I tell you that the long strips that I've just showed you, the long strip is a quarter of a strip, and we only actually need 6 strips. Approximately 2 weeks for the quarter of a strip. Now, the maths doing to maths, it's quicker to do the stripes. And they will look better. So hence, we're ditching this project. I'm going to finish this square, and I've got a tin. And here are the other 8. Right? There are 8 of them in here. Look, see? You can see there's a pile of them, look. Will I actually turn them into a curtain? Don't know. Might not. In part because I know that the lines of the square, thank you, Doug, will slightly annoy me, because I now know I can do better. Now, I've taken a bit of flack, frankly, from the lace making community for the fact that I've managed to join my strips in basically an invisible manner. Now, I worked out how the Chantilly people did it on their shawls back in like the early 1700s. It was kind of logical, don't get me wrong. And after all, I've just explained it to you. However, they use a different style of lace. And the advantage of their style of lace, which is, while obviously their style is called Chantilly, the British version is called Buck's Point. It is exactly the same shit. But their way, while you have pairs of bobbins, when you come to join some bobbins, now in torsion, when pairs of bobbins get together, generally we would do something like cross and twist. Well, that's fine. But we then put a pin in and do it again, because we cover our pins, which gives you this mesh, right? And what it actually means is that if when you do that, the pair of bobbins that were here, so you do cross twist, so these 2 in the middle go, and then these 2 cross over, and then, well, you do it again, so now the pair that is on this side is now on this side, and they've changed places. So the threads travel in this direction. With Buck's Point, you do not, and Chantilly, you do cross and a number of twists. So there's only 2 threads crossing over, making it a lot weaker. It also is usually done in a 60-degree grid, not a 45-degree grid, and so gives you a more rounded, flowery thing when you do various aspects. And because you do cross and twist, hello, let me just finish this description. So because you've got 2 threads, because only 2 cross, you can actually have on the outside, instead of 2 threads like I have making what I'll call hound's teeth, so if I hold this up, you can see that there is no flat edge. It's a bumpy edge to it. So what you have is, instead of here where you just twist it a lot and make it go in a straight line, you have another pin so it goes around and makes the bumps, right? If you do that with Buck's Point stroke Chantilly, you end up with the same bumps, but those bumps can be a single bobbin. Therefore, when you come to twist the thread to join them together, if you do the same number of twists that you would have done if you were doing the twists as you went along, you will 100% invisibly join them together, because you do one side, you do the other side, and then you come back doing the other way. So you make these two single threads now become pairs exactly like they would have been by having the pair of threads come down the middle. Can't do that with these because you've got two. So you're going to have three when you join them together. So you have to do it carefully. Which is why the bold one looks bold, because, well, it's two on top of each other, so that's four, and then a fifth one wound round it. Of course it's going to look big, right? So, to be honest, I did consider making my strips out of Buck's Point, but then it would be overly fragile. These strips are really light compared to a square. So, given that this square is not quite, because as you can see, it's not quite half a square, but the truth be told is it's actually not far off, because it is the same number of bobbins, by the way. So, but it is roughly half a square. So, hello! So, you know, if you think about this, while this is not as wide as the square, it's longer. So this has half a strip has the same gumph as a square, right? But look how light and floaty they are, right? I mean, it's hard to demonstrate how light and floaty they are, but you can see it floating in the very distant fan breeze, right? If I grab a square, thank you dogs for trying to wreck my sitting room. If I do this with a square, it's not moving half as much. They're a lot more solid. They flop. They don't have the drape. So I'm a bit concerned that these are a bit too dense, really, for... They would make great net curtain for privacy in a downstairs room. So if you had like a study where you really didn't want too many people looking through, I mean, if you look, you can't really see... I mean, you can see the brown and the changing of the colour, but the definition is really lost. If I get back my two strips and put these down, for example, you can see much more through them. They are more light would come through. So hence I'm really keen on working on strips, because half a strip is roughly equivalent to one of these, but we technically only need 6 strips. So that works out as 12 squares, but we needed 18 squares to fill the window. Because of course they're actually bigger than squares. Just slightly. So with all of that in mind, plus there's only 6 joins, because you join up through and it'll all be good. Now I've still got to decide what decorations my net curtain's going to have, which is why I'm making so many strips, because I'm calling them audition strips. We are auditioning motifs, kind of to decide, do we like this one or not? And to be honest, there are some not so much. I mean, to be honest, I don't hate on any of them. So, you know, if one of you waved a lot of money at me and said, Liz, make a net curtain with this motif on it for me, it's not like I'll sit there going, oh God, no, oh crap. Now, the next strip that I'm going to make has got one that if you said that, I'd hate you, right? And the cost would be immeasurable, I think is the phrase. And knowing my luck, I will really love it, because that's the way my brain works. Oh look, here's the thing I really, really hate doing. oh, but it's so pretty, right? Yeah, let's not. So I'm really hoping not. I'm sure you understand. Just because I really am hoping not. Because, well, I'm hoping not. Because I really don't want to be doing an arse load of tallies in my curtain. Hopefully it will look really tacky and I won't like it, is all I can say. But because I'm hoping that, we all know I'll love it, right? And I'm going to be honest with myself, because if I really do love it, well, maybe I just need to suck up my hate for it. But it will take a long time and it will be really heavy on the thread. So that will make life complicated. But back to Mars Bandit. How am I today? I have kind of heat stroke. And I need, on that note, to go and refill my very empty drink cup. So bear with me one moment, people. What I will do, because I can. So I know you lot just had ads, but if I throw ads in again, you're not missing anything because I'm going to go and get a drink. But also, it will extend the time before the next ad, so, you know, it will give us a lot more time without ads, and you won't be missing anything. So let me do that, and then I shall, and in that time, I will go and get a drink. Hang on. Click. And yes, turbo is the way to go. Turbo is most certainly the way to go. I know at least two of them, probably three of them are not lace makers. So to be fair, I'm going to guess that most are not lace makers. I think it's the fascination of watching. I mean, I do it. I will go and watch a stream of someone who's doing something that I have no skill at, or, I mean, pick on Zukin, because I love Zukin to pieces. Zukin is a digital artist, and he's really good at it. I suck. I can't draw stick men even with an awful lot of effort. As a result, I enjoy watching him watch to see how it's done, but I can't do it. Couldn't do it in a month of Sundays. And I think there is a bit of that. You know, you kind of feel like you've made a bit of a friend and you stay around for the, you know, because well, you've got kind of a friend and you can support your friend. And, you know, yes, we could all probably pass each other in the street and not have the faintest clue. But at the same time, it is that kind of, I think that is one of the good things about the internet, is you do get that community without having to feel too vulnerable to the rest of the population from the safety of your own home. Granny dogs. Yeah, I thought you had. I thought you'd done some. But, you know, like everything, you know, I mean, I'm game to give a lot of things a try, but it doesn't mean that I want to make them my next big project, you know. Mind you, I usually do kind of, if I'm going to do it, it will be a big project. Let's truly be honest here. After all, I'm not exactly making a bookmark, you know. And sure, I mean, don't get me wrong. While earlier today, picture this, right? Earlier today, there was me minding my own business, you know, doing some work, because I was working. I work for a living. I do a full-time job. And my brain was going, well, you know you've got that thicker con. Yes, brain. Because, right, I need to point out, for those who have not heard some of my stories before, my brain and I are like two different people. My brain and I have conversations. And my brain is evil. My brain is, frankly, like a small, annoying, are we there yet, child? Right. Dark Lady, where are you in the world? Roughly, we're not expecting your full address, of course, you know. America, you know, Europe, you know, and as an approximate kind of, you know. Well, I will tell you that chances are you will not catch tomorrow's stream, because it will be fairly early-ish, depending on which side of the world you are. You know, which side of the country you are, because I will stream from 2 p.m, which is, well, if I bear in mind it's 10 p.m. here now, so that's 20 hours time, right? But on Saturday night, I usually start after this time. So I am on I generally start between 10 and midnight my time, so between now and in the next 2 hours, and I will stream for up to 4 or 5 hours, depending on the mood, the temperature, and where I am at. Because sometimes you get to an end and you're just kind of like, you know what? Yeah, actually, I want to go to bed now. But I do a late stream specifically for people such as yourself, so that, you know, in a reasonable hour of your day, you might catch it. So, you know, I've got an earlier one tomorrow and a later one on Saturday. Hopefully allowing for people to catch them at least once a week. So this is later than usual for me, admittedly, but it is, this feels a bit much. No, it's not. No. It's right. It's right. So I thought I had too many pairs of bobbins, but I don't. It's fine. So yeah, I try and spread them around a little bit during the week to allow for people to have an opportunity should they wish to. So I don't expect to see everyone at every single viewing, because, well, you know. Cool. I must admit, I, underneath this, have a lace pillow stand, and I actually regret having a lace pillow stand. I'd rather have a table. But the advantage of my lace pillow stand is it's a lot easier to move than a table. So I've actually got, if I move this, hang on, move this slightly, hang on. Under here is a wooden, it is actually a tabletop, but it is only the top of the table, which is balanced on the lace pillow stand. I've then got one of my tea towels, which doesn't want to come out from underneath the board. There you go. I've got so I've got a tea towel underneath, and then I've got this on top from when I was making bobbins, because well, I just never got around to getting rid of it. So that I've got that on top, and then well, that's one advantage of the tea towel, I will tell you, is that tea towel does not move. My tea towel is the best part of nearly 1 metre long and 1/2 metre wide. It's about the size of my eventual curtain, to be honest. And I've got quite a few of them because I wove them. But I like my pillows flat. Now, this does tilt, she says. So there you go. You can vaguely tell that that's now on an angle because these will roll, right? But I hate it when it's tilted. I absolutely love it to be flat. So for me, a table is a good answer, but getting a table of the right height, really difficult. Now I've got some rolly tables, but rolly tables and carpets and dogs are a really bad idea. Speaking of which, where are the 2 little tornadoes? Where are my dogs? Well, I mean, this is one of the advantages again of the internet, is that, you know, if you, I mean, I learnt to crochet. I taught myself, and you know, very quickly I took to it, as I inevitably do with most crafting things, quite quickly. But it means that, you know, there are lots of videos to watch on YouTube. There are lots of you know, there are lots of groups to ask people of questions, which of course back in the day you would have had to have learnt from somebody local. You would have gone and seen Mrs. Wise Woman and she would have taught you. But you also would have been forced to learn some of this crap as a child. It is... I love the fact that we now live in a world where we can... Yeah, I mean, I don't tend to do streams as direct instructions. But if people ask me, how do you know this? I will happily explain it to them. These streams are generally for my personal recording of my journey of making net curtain, right? And as we've already established, I'm ditching this one and doing another one now. But the principle of all that I'm doing arguably is the same stuff, just in a slightly different, you know, different shape, and then I'm going to sew it together in a slightly different shape. It's so, you know, because I would never consider myself good enough, I would not expect to teach. But at the same time, I will happily answer any questions I can, and point people in directions of other people and YouTubes and the like, to find out more. Because, you know, if all there was someone who posted, I mean, I obviously post these videos up to YouTube when I'm done, right? And someone posted on, I think it was Blue Sky, saying that, you know, they wanted, you know, that they used to do this, and my video had made them want to try again. Well, that's really cheered me up, because, well, I made a change to someone's life. You know, I've inspired someone to try again. And to be honest, you know, lace making has been highlighted as one of the dying crafts. Well, there are actually quite a lot of people who make lace. The problem is a lot of people don't make it professionally, so they class it as dying. The problem is with it being, quote, a dying craft, is that then companies become reluctant to do things that would be lace related. So you would, you know, publishers would be less keen on publishing a book on the grounds of, oh, well, we hear it's a dying thing. Well, no, it's dying commercially because it takes too frigging long and it's not cost effective. You know, if this square takes me a month, well, 18 months to make a full net curtain, are you really going to want to pay minimum wage kind of level of, you know, even if we just do, you know, minimum wage 40-hour week payment, not actual hours spent, you're going to want to pay 18 months salary minimum wage for one curtain? No one in their right mind would. Absolutely. I mean, if you're Elon Musk and it's money you wouldn't even notice, that's fine. But for normal people, no one's going to pay that. And it's the same with if I was going to spin the yarn to knit you a jumper. Well, I can spin yarn fairly quickly because I can do, you know, I can do woolen yarn, so I can do the whole voodoo thing and make, you know, meter in a go. But the truth of the matter is I still need quite a few balls of wool. I still need to ply it. I still potentially need to dye it, and I still need to knit it. It's going to be at least a month. Who's going to pay a month's salary for one jumper? Again, only a really small number of clientele, and as someone who has the marketing ability of a squashed dead frog, I could not sell chilled bottled water to people doing the Iron Man challenge. So let's not be pretending I'm going to be marketing it for very well. So I'm not going to find those people. So I could make it, but no one would buy it. That's just not a practical business model. So I'm doing this because I can, right? I am making the curtain for me. I'm streaming it because I wanted to keep a record, and it's nice to have you guys to talk to. And again, if any of you kind of want to have a go or are inspired to have a go because you've watched, I'm really pleased with that. And that's, you know, awesome. But I also want to hear of your crafting endeavours. It is more a place to come and hang out, drink your coffee instead of watching brain rot TV. And, you know, if you want to craft and join along, you can read a book and join along. You can, you know, you could be doing anything. And that's fine, because that will still bring me joy thinking that you're enjoying it. And I want that for you. I want you to be happy. And if you're knitting along, as people do, Flusa V often knits along to it, that's great. Happy. Because, you know, you're joining me in a crafting moment. It's a bit like the, you know, days of yore, women used to join up at the church hall for knitting circle. And they'd sit there and knit and chat away. And that's kind of what this is that while I'm doing lace stuff, cool. My only wish is that I was so much faster at this. The problem for me is not the speed of the bobbin bit, it's the constantly stopping to put the pins in that slows me down. That's the bit I'm really crap at. If I felt I could get away without so many of the pins, this would go one heck of a lot quicker. And funnily enough, it's part of the reason the strips are quicker is because you're constantly working in a line. Now, although you can make a bit of a zigzag and... Hello, moth. Bugger off. Come on. Out. You are not sharing this event. Thank you. I find working strips just so much quicker, so hence I'm going to change to strips because, you know, I've worked out that if I only need, you know, we've worked out the half a strip is about a month, so that's a year, not 18 months. That's 50% faster, right? Well, 30% faster. And, well, that can only be a good thing. Plus, I'm going to be happier with the end result. Well, that makes it even better. It's not like it's going to happen 30% faster and look, you know, 40% crapper. It's going to, excuse you, dogs. You know, it's going to look better for it. So it's a win all round. So hence I don't feel shame in I'm not giving up, because I can always come back and make more squares and finish making the squares and finish making the curtain. Even if I made it into a half curtain today, I can still come back and add squares at the bottom and make it longer. The strips would be harder. I wouldn't be able to make it longer, but I would be able to make it wider. So, you know, it's... but, you know, as I was sitting today, a bit of me was going, well, you've got some bigger cotton, so I've got proper weaving cotton, for example. So I've got some 8/4 cotton, which is like size 10 crochet thread or whatever it is. I was thinking about making a shawl. I hate shawls, but I really want to make one for some reason. I really don't know why, but part of me really wants to make a shawl. Mainly because the fly picks on me. There's a fly. Where I live is not far from a rubbish dump. Now, it's far enough that you don't smell it most of the time, but it's not far enough that the flies don't kind of lurk. It's their kind of, you know, shopping central for them. And so my old house and this house, so one was kind of half a mile to the right of it. Now I'm half a mile to the left of it. Flies are an issue, and they just hang out. And I don't know what it is about my person, but they come along and they kind of go flick, flick. And we discussed the X-Men principle, in that if you've seen Future Past, where they go back in time, at the very beginning there's a girl, one of them can throw portals so that you can kind of poke someone from behind without actually being behind them. These flies have got time portals, because you don't see them coming, you don't see them going, but they flick and disappear again. And it is exceptionally frustrating. Very, very, very frustrating, because they bounce off my arms all day. And I've tried fly swatters, but they're not around to be swat. You never see them. It's not like, you know, it used to be they used to kind of go zzz around the light in the middle of the room. No, they don't do that. These flies don't do that. They just sit and they come up behind me and go flick, and bugger off again. But it's too hot to be wearing stuff, so I kind of need a shawl. So I may have to make a shawl. It may be a thing that I have to make a shawl. So, you know, come the end of the curtain, maybe shawl making is the next big thing, you know. Problem is I don't like flowers on my stuff, but I'd be really tempted to do it proper Chantilly style and make the joins absolutely perfect, and yeah, but I don't really want flowers on it. Well, you know, it is what it is and all that. Is it cooler outside, children? Is this what you're trying to tell me? I think it must be. For you are having battles and not just lying down and being quiet. The joy of dog. I do love them a lot. I love them most when they're asleep. So, Dark Lady Savannahs, what lace making do you do? Well, do not fall into the trap of having to get the supplies. You can do it with not... That's fair enough. I mean, you know, as crafters, we do tend to, you know, on our dying deathbed, I bequeath my 63 unfinished projects to do, you know. So, you know, that's definitely a problem. I'm not going to pretend that that's definitely not a thing, she says, looking at a couple of... So, do not be convinced you need kit. I haven't got it quite to hand, but realistically, let me grab this. Yes, it does. Right. So, this is a felt tile for a board, a notice board that I got off Amazon. By the way, I buy a lot of crap off Amazon. Amazon, I swear, if I don't get a delivery within a few days, you know, they'll almost be sending around someone around to check on me. So this is a felt board that I got. I'm going to use it as I use it as a pricking board, but you can use it to make lace. On top of that, here are some bobbins. My, aren't they pretty? I made these. These are made with... Now, these are very much to my personal taste. You may decorate them in your own manner. So, these start out as, and I haven't got any to hand, 5mm wooden sticks that you then colour with a black Sharpie. You can colour them with anything you like. You can paint them, you can... Right? I then varnished them because the Sharpie can rub off. I then glued beads at the top and bottom, as you can tell. So if I hold them up a bit more, you can see the beads a bit better. And I put ball bearings on the top. Mine are metal because I wanted them to weigh a ton. These pair of bobbins weigh nearly as much as one of the sticks with 5 pairs of the wooden ones, right? These are heavy. So if I tell you that I have a bag of them, look, and if I, oops, put it on pinsy bits, but if I open the top a bit, you can see that I have quite a few of them. I in fact have the same number of these as I do the wooden ones on here, for this is what I've been using to make my strips with. I made those, as I said. Bit of glue, and if you look through my stuff on YouTube, there are a couple of videos of me making bobbins, and it's really not that hard. Now, if unlike me you do not want heavy bobbins, and most people do not, use plastic beads. If you want them a bit heavier, maybe a glass one on the bottom. you could make the beads at the bottom square so they don't bloody roll, but that you can still do things with them, or hexagons so that they roll less. Hang on. But it is one of those things, right, that don't feel, if you've got clothes pegs, use a clothes peg. The bobbin itself, its pure function is to hold the thread you have not used yet, because technically, and I say technically, if you only had a little bit to go, you could just have loose threads and cross them over. They're a lot harder to keep track of if you do that, but nothing actually requires the bobbin on the end. Now, in British format, we love Midlands bobbins, which I absolutely hate. And just knock something on the floor. This is a Midlands bobbin, right? A Midlands bobbin has beads on the end to stop it rolling. The problem is the beads mate and tangle and flop. So when you pick it up and it goes like this, then when you put it down, it doesn't lie down flat. So then the other bobbins try and mate underneath. Then the tops get underneath things and tangle. So I hate Midlands bobbins with spangles. Don't hate the Midland bobbin, I hate the spangle, right? There are also other bobbins. There are more types of bobbins than you can shake a stick at. For pretty much every place that makes lace, because they each have their own slight twist on it all, there are different bobbins. So these are Danish bobbins. Don't particularly know why, but they happen to be Danish bobbins. I just happen to like them. I've got quite a few bobbins. Honiton bobbins are about the size of toothpicks. So for someone with man hands, toothpicks are not really a great option. And I really do mean they are toothpicks. Hang on. I think I know where I have one. Hang on. My little box of treasures. So I've got some, these are plastic, these are quite cool, I got them free, they were nice. Let me dig down in my thing, because of course it's sunk to the bottom. This is a Honiton bobbin. Thank you, Rory, your fat ass dog. Knocking everything off my table. So, this is a Honiton bobbin, and well, it's tiny, which is great, but it weighs like nothing, right? And as a result, it's one sneeze and they've all taken a hike off the edge of the world. Now, I made my first square with these because, well, I knew I needed a lot of them. Well, I needed this many of them, but I needed a lot of them. And I have, I don't know about you, but piles of bobbins kind of make me feel anxious for the tangling and the potential breakage and the. So I used these. Yeah, never again. No, not doing that one in a hurry. So, there are many kinds of bobbins, and I don't actually have that many of them to hand. These are just ones that I've got sitting in my little pot of joy. Look, I've got a little pot of joy that holds random things like thread. I've got various sizes of thread. Do not buy this shit. I bought it off eBay. It's supposed to be silk. I'm not sure that it is. Silk is not a good thing to practice lace making with in a hurry. But, being a brave and a intrepid individual, I tried this. It is not spun tightly enough, really, for lace making, because it untwists and then it just goes skanky and it's just painful. So we don't do that if we can help it. She's just trying to put her bots of bits back together. Oh, that's not the thing I thought it was. Okay. put all the things back on top of my box of bits. All my crochet hooks and pokey sticks and things. What's that? Oh, that's what that is. Okay. Sorry, sidetracked. But you do not need anything really more than good sewing thread as a practice, or some very thin crochet thread, and pins, and something to wrap the thread round, such as clothes pegs. You can, and a board. So as I say, this is sufficient. It's not ideal, it's not perfect because it's only like a centimetre thick, but it came in a pack of 6, so you could hot glue the corners together and call it thicker and work on that as your lace making pillow. You've now only spent a handful of quid. You do not have to buy the posh pillow, you do not need to have fancy bobbins. You can do it really cheap. Because when my brain woke up last year and went, Liz, yes brain, I want to make lace. Brain, we haven't done that since I was a child. But I want to make lace. Okay, brain, we'll get some shit off Amazon, we'll make some lace. I used a polystyrene cooler lid, because basically there's a company over here in the UK who sell Cornish pasties, and not the shit from Ginsters, actual Cornish pasties with food in. And they come frozen, and they come in a, I mean, I'd go and get it, but it's kind of buried under something at the moment. So it's about, it's kind of, I don't know, A3 sized. So I put a bit of foam over the top to help, you know, the polystyrene not flake off with the things. Put a layer of cloth over the top and made lace on it. It's one of my favourite pillows. To be honest, each time I've started a new square, I keep meaning to go back to it because I prefer it to this pillow. And I paid good money for this because this one, these move, right, these move, as does the middle, so I can pick it up and move the middle. But it's a bitch. With all these bobbins dangling off it, picking up the middle and turning it around like you're supposed to is evil. Now, it is slightly useful when you're getting down to the bottom corner to shove it up and put that top block down here at the bottom so that there's more space to work. But it's only really useful when you get down to about here. So for 90% of it, you know, there is this bit of you kind of going, yeah. I mean, it's a lovely idea, and I paid a lot of money for it. Well, it wasn't that bad, but I paid money for it, and I got some spare bits in case I wore them out. But I don't love it as much. My roller pillow, no, I love that. I love my roller pillow. In fact, I've got 2 roller pillows. Or have I got 3? 2. But I love my bolster pillow. I've got a big bolster pillow. But you don't need... All you need is something you can put pins in. Now, obviously, if you've got this, for example, you are limited with how long you can make. Because it's, what, 12 inches, right? So, realistically, you could start at the top, finish, say, down about here with your bobbins dangling off the bottom. So you could make a, 9, 10 inch... You could make lots of bookmarks. You could... make some corners, some squares. Now, you can pick up your work and move it on the cushion. It's a bit more complicated, but you could make all of your lace on this. This is hard wearing. It's really compacted felt. It's really quite hard. I mean, if I grab a pin, there's a pin. That pin doesn't really want to go that hard in it, not that you can really see them. Let me go get one with a bobble on. Hang on. So, here's my pin with a bobble, right? It stands quite proud of it, look. You can see that it, I mean, I can push it all the way through, but it's quite hard to push all the way through, You can't really see it's coming out the other end, but... can probably hear it. But you can, but that's perfectly good for making lace. You can make lace on this. It does not have to be super expensive prep. Now, like all good crafters, every crafter wants the pretties, right? You want the fancy smancy crochet hook, the beautiful walnut hand carved crochet hooks that cost like 40 quid a pop. You want you want the beautiful lace holding cushion. You want the well, of course we all want them. But for your first attempt, if you've never done it, who wants to spend that much money to go, actually, I didn't really enjoy that? Do it on the cheap. Do it on the cheap first. Get some squared paper, depending on the thread that you buy. But if you buy standard sewing thread, because I have used, I did a whole bunch of stuff with a cone of overlocker thread, and that's cheap, nasty stuff, right? It went better than that silk shit that I bought. But if you buy, Amazon sell anchor lace and Gutman stuff. Either of those will do, right? The anchor lace comes in different sizes. The Gutman's obviously is just kind of standard size, but it's very nicely twisted. It'll work you fine, right? So get one tube of that, because you'll be surprised how far it goes. If you're making a bookmark, put like 1/2 metre on each bobbin and have a go. Use some squared paper that you can buy from, again, Amazon, but, from any kind of school supplies area. Just get some squared paper, and where the squares join, think of them like my dots, and put the first one there, the next two either side. So you want a fairly small square. I don't think. No, I haven't got them there. It's right underneath my tin, I thought was my squared paper pad, but I've got I think it's 5mm squares. Well, they're perfect. Perfect for that. Your first piece is never going to be heralded and stuck in a museum. It's going to look a bit naffy at the edges, and there's going to be a few boo-boos along the way. But that's the fun of trying something new. If it was that easy and you made it absolutely perfect the first time, it's not really a challenge, is it? The fun of crafting is the challenge. 90% of the time it is the challenge. And if it was all too easy, you wouldn't stick with it, because, well, it's too easy, it's boring. Any idiot could do this. I want to do something that, makes something beautiful, and people go, oh my god, how did you do that? Obviously, we don't all have, we're not all sycophantic, and with that, we need lots of people falling around and going, hey, my goodness, this is so beautiful. But deep down, we all do kind of secretly hope someone's sitting there going, my god, how long did that take you? Look, you see I'm running out of thread on this one. Let's put some more thread on it. Yeah, that's the right one. That's the kind of, secretly, that deep down, that's kind of what you want. You want someone to go, my goodness, how long did that take you? That looks really impressive. Now, we all hope that, it's not going to take that long, but also be prepared that it probably will. Speed does get better as you get more practiced. But like everything, you also need to find the way that suits you. So if you knit, there are 3 general ways of knitting. Portuguese, pick and throw, right? Now, all 3 end up making the exact same knitting. But inevitably, one suits you better than the other. My mother taught me throw knitting. And if I'm starting off on double pointed needles, I feel better doing that than pick knitting, because I find, even though technically I'm letting go, I knit a bit tighter doing throw knitting, which means that the double pointed needles don't wiggle around when they haven't got much to hold them together. Well, you see, that's the difference. I don't do that at all. Hang on. So, depending on whether you, depending on how you do it, there's flick knitting and throw knitting. Now, they're kind of the same. I cannot flick for love nor money, right? I'm pulling out my sock needles and some very ugly crochet thread, so it's a bit small for these needles, but it will do for our demonstration purposes, right? So, for example, let me, no, I did the bloody knot round the wrong way. Of course I did the knot round the wrong way. Inevitably, you always do the knot round the wrong way. Let's try that. Right. So let me just kind of roughly throw on some stitches, just because, you know, this is not a knitting tutorial. And that went the wrong side, but okay. Hang on, that went. That's right. It got confused. Ended up going over the wrong side. Hang on, got a knot in my thread. That's why it didn't work. Right. Try this again. I know you can't see what I'm doing. Don't worry about it. You're not missing out. Right. I am making a ham-fisted effort of it at the best of times. So I'm just going to do some really horrible cast on, the worst cast on known to knitting kind, i.e. the twist and throw over the loop, over the needle variety. Alright, so you're not missing out in any shape or form. Just going to do a bunch. Right, so I've got a very small bunch of things. Now, you see, my mother taught me to hold my knitting needles like this and let go and throw. That's right, they are a bit tight because of how I did the cast on, and the fact that I've not got best viewing method because I'm having to try and do it further away from my face, right? So this is how my mother taught me. And it's not wrong, but as you can see, this cast on really does suck because the stitches end up pulling apart, but this is why it's the worst cast on known to knitting kind. So I'm just trying to poke my needle through the hole that doesn't want to be a hole. Hang on. Need a bit more thread, hang on. So let's not use the long end because use the end, don't need that. So it's not a bad way of knitting, and this is generically one of the more common ones used in the UK of throwing, in the sense that you do throw, but that I am really struggling to knit these stitches. I really should have done a better cast on, shouldn't I? Doesn't help that I've just dropped one, but it doesn't matter. But you sit there and you knit through them. As I say, I'm not very good at knitting on camera because this is almost my arms at full stretch. So as a result, I can't see that range very well with my glasses. So it is not overly desirable to knit with them. But I do need to kind of get to the end. So let me do this and cheat. I know I'm knitting in the back loop and it kind of screws it up, but the back loop's easier to get at. So let me just do this. And I'll show you. So when working with DPNs, because they are so kind of unconnected, and obviously when you connect them in the round, it's liable to twist, and you know, when you change needles, you've got the other needles flapping around in your face, and it just gets kind of a bit complicated. I find this style of knitting the easiest for me to do, because you hold, when you're doing it, you hold the two needles dead still and move the yarn, which is, you know, kind of a practical thing. It truly is. So it'll be easier for me to knit once I've got to the end of this and we have evened out a bit of the stitches. So I'm just going to knit, I'm not going to do anything else. Now if I convert to pick knitting, I find it a lot easier. Again, trying to do it on the screen is going to be difficult, but I find doing this, she says missing, I missed the gap because I can't fucking see with my glasses on. There it is. I find this a much easier method. I'm not finding picking up such a tiny thread off big needles easy, but I find this a lot easier in terms of general knitting, because one needle is doing absolutely all of it. My left hand is sitting here like a useless thing that it is, although I am ambidextrous to a large extent, as you will soon see. You know, I do find this kind of convenient, because I can, you know, with a decent bit of sewing yarn, which I didn't have to hand. Well, I do actually. There's a knitting project behind me on the couch. I should have picked it up really, but you know, I find that quite a practical way to knit. The Portuguese style, have it round your head, and you basically do pick knitting, but with the yarn coming from in front of you. But one of the things that I taught myself, which is really good for those of you who make shawls, is to knit with your left hand. So if you think about how you knit with your left hand, now obviously I'm going to do it a bit more English style, but if you knit left-handed, you don't have to turn the work round to go back the way you came. Now, I'd never knitted left-handed before. Now, technically, I am purling, but I'm also not. I'm knitting. And this is how I taught my left-handed friend to knit. Because what I got them to do is I said, right, all of the instructions you will get are from the right-handed knitters. So if you knit truly as a left-handed knitter, you need a left-handed pattern, or you cannot follow it. Because when it says, you know, cast off the first 3 stitches, well, you can't, because they'll be your last 3 stitches. And, well, now you're stuck in a corner. You can't do that. If you do this, so the right side is facing you, as it says in your book, but you work kind of almost in reverse, you are now doing the work, and you can do that because it will say here, you know, at this row, cast off the first 3 stitches. Well, when you turn it round, you can cast off the first 3 stitches, because the right side is away from you, not towards you, but it's you now do what would be a purl stitch, because you're doing it the wrong way round, but you now get to do the pattern that you were instructed. And so the advantages of not swapping around, if you've got a big project such as a large shawl or a bedspread, hello, did that, not having to turn the work, especially as in many lace patterns you do fancy on one direction and just knit the backwards row. Well, you just watched me knit the backwards row. It's so much quicker if you don't have to turn it around, especially if you've got loads of colour changes and all the rest of it. You don't get your stuff tangled, you just work the other way around. So it is a skill really worth learning. Can't stress that enough. But by preference, I am a pick knitter. But yeah, I've taught my left-handed friend how to knit. She was flabbergasted because she could copy me. Because of course half her problem with learning to knit has always been everyone else was right-handed. So when they tried to show her, they couldn't show her left-handed. They could only show her right-handed knitting. Well, that's all well and good, but not everyone's right-handed. Well, I can teach left-handed knitter. I can now knit left-handed. I learnt to knit left-handed because I once heard, and you know, like a lot of things, it was that, well, that's bloody obvious. Because once someone said it, it does seem obvious. Because, you know, yes, I now move the thread to the other hand, but that's just because, you know, I find it trying to pick knit this way around because it would, I mean, I can, but I'm less comfortable doing it. But if I practiced it enough, it would probably be all right. But if I do this, I haven't turned my work around, and so if I've got a big heavy project or whatever, it puts far less strain on the knitting, the project, on me, and well, I know if I'm working an odd row or an even row because I know which way I'm knitting through it. So I just sit here and I knit left-handed through my stitches, and as I said, it means that I can now teach a left-handed knitter without without trying to struggle and work out how it will work for them and trying to explain and rewrite the pattern that they wanted to make to fit them. They just work the other way round. So they have, whenever it says right side facing you, the only difference is right side away. That's it. That is the only difference in the pattern they've got to do. So when it says knit, if they treat this as their knit stitch, even though technically it's a purl, because if you think about it, if I turn it round, it's a purl stitch. It's a purl stitch. But if you tell them it's a knit stitch, they are performing the right stitch for the needles in this direction. Then they can do everything that we can do with the same pattern. Why is this not more of a thing? You know, here I am and I'm making a nice little bit of stockinette, look. I mean, you probably can't see it too well, but because it's tiny, but it's a nice little bit of stockinette. And yet, I'm not turning it round, I'm doing knit stitches. Yeah, you're all hot and bothered now you've been doing that, aren't you, dogs? So yeah, it's... Oops, drop my knitting needle. Before the dog eats it or something. Fortunately, these are metal, but you know. So yes, I you know, but this is one of the things is that, you know, I love, this is why I love watching other people's crafting. I love watching tutorials. I'm not watching a tutorial necessarily because I don't know the subject that they're covering. I'm looking for alternate ways of doing something. And as I say, I once heard a lady who was talking about making lace shawls say she knits back left-handed because she got so fed up of turning around her work. My brain went, it's fucking genius shit, that is. So I did, and that's what I did, and I have never looked back. I hardly ever turn my work around now because it stops the twisting, it stops everything. It's genius. It is the answer to the universe. You know, it solved all my knitting woes, kind of thing. So why wouldn't you? Highly recommend, you know. So just winding this bobbin up. You decided to get a bit longer. So yeah, but stupid little tricks like that are things that, you know, can come up in the strangest places. I mean, anyone joining a lace stream has just been really confused about why I was explaining to why I do left-handed knitting. Because it is a glorious thing. Roo! Roo! You're a gobby little cow, really, aren't you? Yes. Madam. Amy. I know it must be cooler outside because you're all going nuts. Now, this... Oh no, that's right. Victory for Sylvanus indeed. Hello! Hello! You know what? Considering how crappy I've been feeling, we've done a I will say, for the Horde! But, you know, I was being polite. I think we all used to play at some point. Yeah, there was a stream I was watching the other day and everyone asked, for the Horde. It is for the Horde. It's got an E on the end. But one of the things that I would say actually is that, so, question for you previous people then who played World of Warcraft. What was the first character you played in World of Warcraft? Both. Got some rogues in the house. Interesting. I was a Tauren hunter called Tatara. And she was... Ah! You alliance, you. Yeah, I was a Tauren hunter in the beta. I did the beta. And then when it came out, I made the exact same character again because I really liked it. So Tatara was my first character. And to be honest, every server I ever went on, I made a character of a Tauren hunter called Tatara. Even if I didn't play it, because it's mine. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But of course, they came in a lot later, didn't they? Blood Elves were a lot later. Ew. 1, 2, 3. I never got on with EverQuest 2, and I was really disappointed. I did the beta for EverQuest 2. I've done lots of betas, by the way. I did lots of betas, and I loved... And I tried EverQuest 2, and... way back at the very beginning, so if you weren't in like the first 6 months, this won't mean as much to you. Freeport, so for those who do not understand, just nod gently, right? Freeport, in the very early, well, the tutorial was kind of like a long rectangle kind of island originally. And then once you finished the tutorial, you went out onto the main island and arrived at Freeport. And Freeport was so different. I mean, everyone knew their way around EQ. You know, if you were playing, chances are you played EQ1, you knew your way around Freeport. But you know, the Crafters Guild wasn't in West Freeport, or North Freeport. It was, or East Freeport. It was just Freeport, and well, there was stuff, and it all looked really weird, and it didn't gel. And then you had like the fact that the original EQ2 was a lot better. The newer one, where like a lot of things, one of the things that I dislike about, for example, WoW retail, shall we call it, because obviously there's a few varieties of WoW now, is how back in our day when we played, you had to save up for your skills. You had to go and find them. And not all the skills were in, say, your hometown. You had to go, if you were a Tauren, they weren't always in Thunderbluff. You had to go over to Orgrimmar to go and get, your flight or your mount, right? When you were a warlock, you had to go and do quests to get the right to fight to earn your pet. Now you turn up and for example, if you made an undead one, because let's face it, we all did. You make an undead one. You go into the town and it goes, yeah, fight this thing, and you go, and it's dead, and you go, great, now I've got my pet. There's kind of no challenge in it. And that you get all your skills for free, and now you can't pick your own skills. You pick a path, so you go, I want to be a, with a hunter, you either, you kind of want to specialise in traps, or you want to specialise in shooting things. You don't go, well, I want that specific skill and that specific skill. They've taken all that away. And, well, when they brought out the panda race, I made a panda monk, and by the end of the weekend I was level 50 something. What the flower was that? Stop giving stuff away. And one of the things that I've never I played at launch for until I think Wrath of the Lich King, right? On and off. It was not, but I played EverQuest until EverQuest 1 until must have been 2010 or so, and then well, the problem I have is they've made so many of these games too easy. I mean, EverQuest 1, back in the day, you'd be level 20, basically almost standing there in your underwear, with a rusty weapon, like 3 spells to your name, and 1 bag, right? Now, you log in and it puts you in the tutorial by default. By the time you finish the tutorial, you're level 12, you have an entire set of statted gear, including jewellery, and which gives you, mana conservation and power to your healing spells. Yeah, but and that's the thing, is that, between you and a merc, if you wanted to play a more melee class, you grabbed a Healy one. If you wanted to be anything else, you grabbed a DPS one, right? So you got yourself a merc, money was raining from the sky. By the time you finished the tutorial, you probably had 100 plat in your bank account. The only people who had more than 100 plat in their bank account were the dedicated traders in days of old. No one had 100 plat to their name, unless they got to the raiding and flogging off their wares stage, right? Everyone else was broke. Everyone else kept every damn copper. That random bit of shit that dropped off a mob that's worth 3 copper, you damn right we all kept that and sold it, because that 3 copper counted. Travelling to Firiona V because you wanted clarity, and having to change your race because they all hated you, and you don't do any of that now. You go to Planar Kingdom and go, give me, and that's it, you walk off. Planar Kingdom, in my mind, was the beginning of the end for EverQuest, because now, being evil didn't matter. There was none of this, oh, I'm a lizard and I'm at the wizard tower, can someone bring me some water, I've run out, I'll give you a plat. All of that died, then and there. The wizard and the druid taxi service died, Planar Kingdom, because now you're never more than a zone away from a book. Click, there you go, up to the Planar Kingdom, run to the next book, click, now you're next in the next zone you wanted to be in. You were never far away, the taxi service died. Taxi service was the only way I ever made money in EverQuest, and they killed it. Because I made a druid. I'm not a good druid, I'm a pet class. But I got my druid to, you know. But they killed it. But now, if I start an enchanter, which is one of my most sucky classes on EverQuest, I can be nearly level 60 by the end of the weekend. And I'm not talking I'll have played 20 hours a day. And I'll have been in like 3 zones. Because you arrive in the tutorial, leave the tutorial, you go to the place that it kicks you out to, I forget the name of it. And then you go over there, you kill the bears in the cave. That takes you to the next zone. You then kill the worms and the snakes. And then you move around the zone. You finish moving around the zone. You are now basically level 60. 2 zones. There are thousands of zones in EverQuest. But you're not going to see them when the quickest and most efficient way to get to a level, and you're getting serious money, decent gear and all the rest of it, when you don't have to change zones. When you don't have to adventure. It's almost, and it is almost the, congratulations, you've been logged into the game for 25 hours, you are now level 55, enjoy. It might as well be time based. There is no skill in it. I mean, you can still die and all the rest of it, but realistically, they've taken the skill out of the game. Now, I'm not saying that we should have to walk uphill both ways, right? I'm not saying that there should be death all the time. But for those of us who are doing M&M, this is the game we wanted. We want a game that takes time. We want to appreciate being the level that we are, because we had to work for it. We do not want it handed to us on a plate. Now, sure, it does mean we will bitch because, you know, it seems to be taking forever. But that's actually what we wanted. Because if we all joined the playtest next weekend and by the end of it we're level 50, well, where's the fun in that? Where is the fun in that? Actually, isn't this coming in one, a 5-day one? Well, and that was the other thing. I mean, you know, even when most of us no longer have 20 hours a day we can spend gaming. And I do think that there is a place for easier games where, you know, you do not have to put in 20 hours a day to be, quote, relevant, right? Now, I'm not a PvPer. I am absolutely not a PvPer. I absolutely hate PvP. Every experience I have of PvP was just horrible. So, but I also see that it could be great, wonderful and honourable, but it never is. All it seems to be is some, you know, 17-year-old Jack who logs in, has managed to get his way up to a high level because he managed to start it and, you know, was bunking off school, so had like 20 hours a day to play it, got all some good gear, got high up, and literally sits there and like, level 1, you're dead. Level 1, you're dead, right? My style of play is the most stupidest, and I need to point that out. It is a massively multiplayer online game, so I solo. All of them. I soloed EverQuest 1. I am not the person who wakes up in a game and kind of goes, Mage! Yeah, Mage, Necro, Beast Lord, you know, all of those kind of pet classes, because, you know, that helps. But I am not the person who goes, Mage, looking for group, you must need me. Which one of you is going to make me the highest bid of, you know, to bribe me to join your group? I'm not like that. Exactly, right? I like shamans, not so much into druid or wiz, because I'm just not. But, you know, rogue and warrior and just not really up my boat, right? But at the same time, I'll have one, I just won't have got very far with it. But I don't expect to be in the top echelons doing top echelon things, right? Because I'm doing it by myself, minding my own business. I don't trouble nobody. I get slightly annoyed when a group will come along and I'm clearly working an area and they feel that, well, that's mine now because you obviously don't need it. I want to be a rogue, but I don't want a group. I don't want the hassle of being reliant on a group. But I want a group. I want a rogue. So to be fair, that was the one thing I did like about with the mercs with EQ was that it did allow me to play a rogue because I could get a cleric and I could evade and backstab my way up rather than just trying to be a bad tank, right? So I did kind of like that. Exactly. I mean, the rogue and the spellblade seem to be getting some level of crowd control, which I like. As you say, there's a kind of a, you know, the rogues get some form of stun and all the rest of it, and you know that will be good because not everyone wants to be a chanter, and I like the fact that chanters get to control their pet, unlike the EQ ones because they were fucking annoying. Well, and that's the problem. It starts getting really hard after that. Because when you can only really kill light blue mobs, you're going to be facing a bit of a climb. But I think, I think Monsters and Memories is being run by people who loved the same things about EQ that we did. But at the same time want to bring back enough of the things that we enjoyed and enough of the pain points to make it an effort without it being, thou will spend 100 hours as level 20 before you get to be level 21. That there is plenty to do to distract you from the fact that it is not a fast journey. I think we have an interesting time ahead. I really think that it could be good. There is so much still to come. Because we don't really have racial traits yet. I want more ogres. I need more ogres. I'm sorry, but there need to be more ogres. I've got 3 accounts already and they're full. But I've got like 20 characters on each account. I am an alcoholic, right? But I've kind of got one of everything, and 90% of them are ogres. There are a few goblins, a few dwarves, 1 human. I think I have a couple of gnomes. I tried wood elves. Yeah, they're beautiful wood elves, but I'm not really a wood elf. I did wood elf when I started EverQuest. But again, one of the biggest things that I hated about playing with knowledge for EverQuest was that being evil didn't matter anymore. Well, so then the problems of being evil that balanced out. Yeah, just for some reason, they look breakable. But, mind you, I love Kelethin. I remember as a real noob, I must have been like level 3, some higher up came along and said, right, I've got, you know, a fine steel sword for we're going to do a drunk newbie run from, you know, the pod lift to the... What did I call my druid? Shellac. All my characters on that server started with the word shall be, shall get, shall ack. And she was ack because I didn't know what to type. And I was like, oh, ack, I don't know what to do. Oh, ack'll do. Shall ack. So all my characters were called shall something. All as one word. So shellac and shall be and yeah. So it was like shall be summoning. To give you an idea, was my mage. I think, I mean, don't get me wrong, having looked at places like Quam and P99, and they didn't feel the same, and I can't quite put my finger on it. P99, now you see, when I started it was 1999, and maybe, yeah, it must have been 1999, and because I remember Kunark. Well, I never get as far as endgame particularly, so it doesn't. Oh, I solo, so it doesn't really worry me. But the problem I had with P99 was when I remember when I first played EverQuest, when you died, you respawned with 5 food, 5 water. Now, you didn't get your body back, you had to go and get it, but you got, your food disappeared on your body, and you got a new set of food. So everybody knew that just before you hit level 5, you had to die, get the maximum amount of free food. I've never seen that on P99 or Quam. So to me, instantly, my little autistic brain cell goes, it's not the same. Even if absolutely everything else was the same, the fact that that's not, well, the first thing I remember about the game isn't there. And I don't remember there being wasps in and around Kelethin until Legacy of Yukesha, when they needed them for the statted army that they brought in for, when the frogs came, right? And if you ever did the beta for the frog game on the test server, you know me more than you think, right? But I don't remember there being wasps in Kelethin. There were spiders, skeletons, little bears, fairies, orcs. But I don't remember there being wasps at the beginning. Not in the early days. They came in with Legacy of Yukesha because you had to get thoraxes and wings and shit to make your armour. But Quam's put them in. Well, but that wasn't a thing. Wasps were in Rivervale area, Misty Thicket, but they weren't round Kelethin. And so to me, it's very difficult when you've got strong memories of things, and that's not what you get anymore. And this isn't adding up. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. And this is the thing. We have memories. And yeah. Okay. Why is this not adding up? Oh, fuck it. for those of you not suffering ads, you get to listen to me waiting for the others to return. It is only fair. Got about 2 minutes. Either there's something big and buzzy. I can hear something big and buzzy. But the moment I take my earpiece out, no I can't, so that's a bit weird. Sometimes it used to be the camera refocusing, but I actually fixed the camera length so that it doesn't constantly refocus, so it doesn't make kind of buzzy noises now, because it was getting on my nerves a bit. So, with any luck, you're all back now. It's been wonderful talking to you all about EverQuest and Monsters and Memories and World of Warcraft and the memories we all have. I really enjoyed those years of my life playing those games, and as a result, I am properly looking forward to Monsters and Memories. Don't forget, there is a test coming up, weekend after next, I think it is. I can't remember. For some reason, I've got in the back of my mind it's a 5-day one. Hang on. That's if you can spell it right. So. They did announce, the problem is, like everything, it's me finding the announcement. Not on there, obviously. I thought that was there. I thought it was on the... Okay, so the July playtest is from Wednesday the 23rd to Sunday the 27th. So that's next Wednesday. No, yes, next Wednesday. So, you know, again, that'll be a good time to play. Oh, you lucky bugger. The only good thing I get is half-day Fridays, so I will be in it as much as I can, is the short answer. You'll be surprised how much I'm online, but I'm a lot quieter if I'm in a meeting. Let's just say that. I wonder see if I can take the time off. Let's be honest, I wonder if I can take the time off. But yes, you know, if EQ1 back in the day scratched your itch, right, come and give it a go, because Monsters and Memories does have that kind of feel. But it's not like P99 and all the rest of it, where they are exactly EverQuest. It is like it was set at the time of EverQuest, but on another world. So it's got many familiar feelings. So there are obviously clerics and mages, but they're not called mages; they're called elementalists. But you know, they have, but they've also got spellblades and inquisitors that EverQuest never had. They've got ogres and humans and what else? And well, it's not much of a voice, let's truly be honest. It's more of one of those. I sound more like a suicide hotline phone caller. So, you know, my voice is not my best point, to be honest. And while the picture you have in front of me is kind of me, I am also 53. So, I look a little bit older and haggard than the person that you are looking at now. But you're right, it's 25 to midnight, so I will be logging off, which is why you're looking at me and not my lace anymore. But yeah, do come and join us on Monsters and Memories next week. Child. So, you know, thank you all for joining me tonight. I'll be back at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, so that's 22 hours time. Night, honey bear. So yeah, about 22 hours I'll be back online for a bit, and then again kind of starting about this time Saturday night. So if you can join me for any of those, I will love to see you, and we can talk about all sorts of manner of crap, because well, that's what we do. Because well, to be honest, none of you are here to talk about lace, so and that's fine, because chatting away is really good for the soul. You've cheered me up a lot. I was feeling a bit kind of bleh at the start, but I'm now feeling really quite happy. So I will set this to upload. I will have to leave my computer on overnight, and I will post about it tomorrow. But thank you all very much for joining me. I do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and I hope that many of you will come back, because I'm sure some of you are newer people. I hope I will, and I think I'm in a better mood, so hopefully I will sleep well, and hopefully the dogs will not battle on me all night like they did the other night. So, and if they will, they might discover the wrath of Liz on a bad day. So, yeah, take care everybody. Do come back if you can. As a reminder, in case you want to follow me anywhere else, hang on, I have other places you can find me. Hunt me down like a dog, that's fine. I will hope to see you all again soon. Take care everybody. Sleep well where you are, have a good day, and maybe I can see you soon.